She was raised in a two-parent home by drug dealers, a family home raided in her earliest years of life. Lack of fatherhood connections and rebellious behavior in her teens turned her into becoming a wife that breaks her family into two. Her claims of domestic abuse from her husband is her reason of why she made the worst decision you can in a marriage.
I had my dad in the home, but my theory is he stopped paying attention to me when I got a mind of my own. So him and I haven't been close my whole life. We are now. But my mom is my rock, my absolute best friend and soulmate.
You're close to your mom?
Oh yeah, most definitely. She's my best friend.
What would you say is the roughest part of your childhood?
The roughest part of my childhood was probably watching my parents get into some legal trouble when I was very young. I didn't even find out what they did until I was 15 or 16, but the house got raided and I watched my parents get taken away, so.
What were they doing?
They were drug dealers. So, but everybody's clean and sober now and doing really well.
Good. How far did you go in school?
Oh, I graduated. I graduated from my local high school in Griffith.
But what kind of kid were you in high school?
I was a good kid until I turned 16. And then I started smoking weed, skipping school, doing drugs, drinking. I actually got expelled December of my senior year for having Xanax on me. And my mom had called the school and told them. So I did get arrested. I just turned 18 at 18 for having drugs at school. And then I kind of continued to get arrested on and off and crash multiple vehicles on drugs until I turned 21 when I got clean for good.
For good?
For good.
Good for you.
Yeah, been 12 years.
That's great.
Thanks.
1. Lack of discipline. Due to the lack of discipline in her own family structure, she decided to make her own decisions in life. Lost attention from dad has her befriend her mother more, and her father's sins loses her paternal direction. Being raised by lawless parents makes her lack respect for any form of discipline, as she wasn't given examples to live by. Most would consider it rebellious behavior, but most who grew up with parents like this will not see how wrong their upbringing is and fail in life. Without the discipline, many grow up with their decisions being based on emotion and not logic. Befriending her mother, as most kids will do, always sets the children to turn into a direction of misguidedness. The lack of discipline within the paternal relationship of the father leads the kids to his very own sins.
Where has your life gone since then?
It's better now. I mean, I'm a mom. I have 2 children. I'm a provisional community association manager for HOAs. I live in Reno. I just have the best boyfriend I could ever ask for. So it's been different, but where I'm at right now is good.
What have you been through between the boyfriend and moving or leaving high school?
So I moved to Reno with a man that I had known in person for just a month or so. I met him through the company I was working for. He ended up not being the nicest man ever, but I followed him to Reno, and I was with him for almost a decade. But I probably wasn't the best wife to him. So we got divorced in July of 2020, I believe.
You were married how many years?
We were married 6, together almost 10. Yeah.
You guys had problems?
Yes, we both had our own sets of problems. Like I mentioned, he wasn't very kind. So he did lay hands on me, be very rude to me, make terrible comments, call me names, put me down. But then I was unfaithful a few times and ended up mothering children from those men.
2, the independent mindset. Once away from her home, her independence of her own security and financial security was her main focus. She considers trying to make her life change by being financially secure, the most common independent woman strategy, after lacking the discipline in the home. Next is their relationships. Many hope to find better than what they have seen, yet lack understanding of what it really takes. Her decision to leave with the first man she met within a few months only comes from not being aware of what to look for. She wasn't raised to be a wife, so no understanding her role in marriage will ever come easy. As she talks about the domestic abuse, she grins as if satisfied with that outcome because it enabled her to become unfaithful within her marriage and have other men's children along with it. She uses her domestic abuse as the trigger, saying that he wasn't a nice guy, but had a 10-year relationship with a 6-year marriage with him. That I'm grown, I could do what I want, regardless of what you already committed to, was much better than being a wife to this so-called not nice man. This is why most men are not forgiving of this action, even if understood of the consequences, because they are never the victims in women's infidelity, but always the main cause of them. When women have such independence, they are to believe that they are of greater species, but yet still victims as well. And that shows many that their intentions and decisions will always come with someone else being sacrificed for them, and they will never be the blame.
On my husband.
So you were married to your husband, but you were having children with other men.
I was. And he raised them as his own and knew them to be his own until the divorce, is what it is. No matter how mean he was to me, I don't use that as an excuse for what I did, because there's not an excuse, you know? And I carry a lot of guilt with me about it. And I got my babies. I mean, they're the greatest things in the whole world, but...
How did he find out?
He did the paternity test, and the paternity test came back. He was 99%, not the father. And he called me, and he was like, do you want to get in front of this? I said, get in front of what? What do you mean? And about an hour later, he had posted publicly on Facebook that he was not the father of the children.
How many kids?
2.
How old were they?
5 at the time, 4 and 2. 4 and 2. And they still know him to be their only father. And he still treats them as if he's the only father.
So he's still in their lives?
Oh, yeah.
It's very nice of him.
If that's what you want to call it. I call it control, but nice is not a word that people often use for this man. Anything he can do to not essentially let go of me and to kind of continue to control my life is what I think to be the reason. He sees him once a week, takes him every other weekend, maybe not even the whole weekend. So he did fight me on pretty much everything I asked for. The divorce ended pretty equal. Nobody got anything crazy. 50-50 with the kids until he ended up unhoused. But yeah, he's still present. He still shows up to parent-teacher conferences. He coached my son's baseball team last summer. So he's still as involved as he wants to be.
3, the victimhood. Even with paternity proving that responsibility no longer lies with the ex-husband, she still has a belief of emotional trauma from him being able to see the children, and he has even raised them with her prior. Not being a quote-unquote nice man gave her reason to commit paternity fraud and to fight against the man that she even portrayed in court. Her shocked response of the husband wanting to fight back for what he has earned has her to believe he is in the wrong, as she stops smirking on her ex, still willing to be a father to the kids that are not even his. She hates that the good in him shows by being there for those kids, although she wants the world to see him as a villain. This is a modern woman, a modern case, where they are shocked by the outrage and anger from the ones they betrayed and hurt, and want to play victims to those actions well-deserved. She sees herself a victim even though she knows she was wrong, yet she would continue to accuse the ex-husband of dishonesty, disloyalty, adultery, and treachery towards her own family. All due to him not being the nice guy, because to her, she sees the world as being part of the harmless amongst the others who are harmful.
Was there a little bit of revenge or satisfaction in what you did?
No.
No?
I mean, my babies, I guess, would be the satisfaction, but no, I mean, it didn't even make me feel better because he was never any nicer to me. He still treated me like crap, you know, and still, no matter how he treated me, I still feel like this about what I did to him, because it sucks. I ripped his whole life away.
That would be a horrible thing to go through.
You know? And it's like, I didn't come out unscathed. I mean, he was mean the whole process, but my life wasn't ruined. My whole life wasn't taken away from me. So, I always feel worse about what I did to him than anything. That's what gets me every day.
4, guilt. Even though you might not see it in social media for likes, it still resonates within us. Guilt always lingers inside. With her bad decisions and behavior, she can't help but have the feeling. She was given a lifestyle many women will want to have, and yet she ripped a man's life apart. No such abuse or trauma should make anyone who is supposed to be seen as a victim have any right to reciprocate their actions by destroying someone else's. She understands that this is what she did. She knows it was not deserved. She is aware that she did hurt him, even though she wants to villainize him. This tells me he wasn't as bad as she makes him to be. She can tell the divorce and paternity results destroyed him. The kids still see him as their father, and him being active carries on within her guilt as well. Guilt towards what she did and guilt towards her actions will never prove her to be in the right. She knows this. She didn't come out unscathed, she says, and wasn't destroyed by the divorce. Got remarried to one of the fathers and speaks of glee of how her life is now with him. Yet, she believes she had burdensome trauma and abuse as well. She can't let go of the victimhood, understands her guilt.
Yeah, I was a daddy's girl until I could form my own opinions, I say. Once everything daddy said wasn't right and wasn't true, that's kind of when he, I don't want to say didn't care. He just stopped being so present in my life. And he would make comments about my weight and I got an eating he wasn't a nice man. And I know that's where I get wanting kindness so bad. He was never a nice man. But now he's older, and I gave him the boy he always wanted, so he's kinder.
5, the daddy issues. With fathers, they are the main ones who will critique behavior and actions in forms of discipline. Mothers are to walk along the order for the children to follow. Both are supposed to be the examples. When being raised by both parents that are not walking a path of discipline and structure, the words they pass on to their children will never be taken seriously because they didn't take life seriously. Unlawful acts within parents will cause rebellion within children. This is why men were to follow the Lord, as women were to follow their husbands. It walks along a path of order within the family, guidelines to help refrain from the misguided descendants. Even though attention is what she sought from her father, she was lacking the paternal structure and leaned on the maternal friendship her mother created. Turning to independence from drug-dealing parents can't be too positive of an outcome for a teen. They fall into the same mistakes their parents made. She got her choice in men on her father because he wasn't nice as well, so she married someone like him. What she fails to see is that she really doesn't even know what nice is. As a man that raised children with her that aren't even his is a bad guy, and the man she cheated on him with is the good guy. Now, the claim may or may not be true of abuse, but the reality is that her actions were to rebel on her marriage and make her husband the villain while lacking the accountability that she never understood what a nice man was in the first place.
If you stay 10 years in a marriage that isn't the right one, then you're just gonna live miserably your whole life or end up doing what I did. And I feel like if you're truly happy and if they treat you how you deserve to be treated and, you treat them the same, I feel like that's the biggest thing, is just finding the right one.
The modern culture of marriage has women believe that if it is not serving you, you don't need to be in it. Traditional marriage is being looked at as oppression and sexism. Gender roles diminished to punishment for women and superiority for men. When you are raised within a home that violates the law and the natural order of things, you are not given the values necessary to become a good citizen or a good person yourself. The lack of teaching how to be better almost always puts the young in a position to think they know more than they do and leave home on their own ideals on how the world works instead of understanding what the world is. Where things went wrong as a society is we had many before us who lost the traditional values that were necessary to create better families, discipline the children, and a cultured community. The decades of sexual liberation being promoted and prioritized before family and values builds the hookup culture we have. Many of us come from parents who didn't prioritize their roles or the duty they had when they gave birth to us. And many of us are lost when it comes to relationships. Marriage, that is such a sacred bond and duty, the lifeline to our lives and society. What we now take for granted. There is no way to erase the errors of the past, but we have to move forward in the present and understanding the value that aligns with our family, discipline, and structure so we can build our children up for a better future. And this should be every woman and every man who are mothers and fathers' priority. I want to thank you all for tuning into a second episode of Loah Case Files. Stay tuned for the next episode by supporting my channel. Comment, like, share, and as always, I thank you all for watching.